I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV Velocities and Music, the best kept secret in music reviews. Tom, a couple years ago we reviewed an artist by the name of Sharon Van Etten. And she had an album come out then called Tramp.
Yep.
Now, we reviewed Tramp, noted a lot of qualities that we liked, and we made some pretty good arguments for reasons why we didn't like Tramp as an album. Now, looking back, I have stuck with a lot of those tracks, and I kind of feel that we underrated that album just slightly.
Okay,
we gave it in the upper 60s. I think it's probably a 70s record, and I just want everyone to know that Tom and I, you know, as we grow as music reviewers, that, you know, our opinions of records do change. And I bring this up because Sharon Van Etten's new record, her fourth album, Are We There?, you know, may not be significantly different in style, but in the way that she executed Are We There, there's some significant differences that we're going to dive into right now. First of all, I would say that Are We There, you know, Sharon Van Etten, for those of you who are not familiar, this album, is getting a ton of hype. It has an 87 on Metacritic. This is getting some serious love. And I think, you know, that is just initially intriguing to me. This album, in compared to Tramp, does not rock nearly as hard. It's much more personal. It's much more lyrically centered than her previous records. Now, her previous records definitely had lyrics that you wanted to pay attention to get the full album experience, but Are We There seems to be much more crafted around those lyrics. Yeah. What was your take on the sound of Are We There?
Well, you know, you mentioned the difference coming out of Tramp, and I would almost compare it to kind of the sound difference that we saw in the National going into High Violet.
It's funny that you bring up the National.
Yeah, because she has worked with them in the past.
That's how she was discovered.
Yeah, exactly. And you hear some similarities between their sound as well, and especially just the mood that they're going for and achieving through really, you know, what in general can be called indie rock. Now, there are definitely some folk elements to it as well.
Yes. It's singer-songwriter at its core.
It definitely is. But what she does is she beefs up that singer-songwriter foundation with lots of great dynamics.
Absolutely.
You know, great instrumentation, harmonies in the vocals and in the instrumentals with like piano, guitar that kind of come in and out of the mix, like almost movements when they need to. And so it creates for an experience that is really kind of above and beyond that general pop format, even though a lot of these songs will be kind of verse-chorus, or maybe they have some builds in them. The way that she executes the instrumentation makes it much more interesting. And another reason I kind of compare it to High Violet is just because this feels like a much more evocative and emotional album.
Yeah.
She's really pouring herself into this, and I think you would have to try not to be able to be on board with that and be affected by it in some way.
I mean, this really sent, to me, two artists that like I hear just seeping out of the sound is Y Oak, specifically on Civilian. Has that just kind of visceral edge to it, but it's really just a nice sound. But still a little bit on the you know, minor key side of things.
There's tension there.
Yep. And then also Beach House, and I think that, you know, some of the subtle electronic melodies and aspects that she puts into some of these tracks, I think really definitely remind me of Beach House at times, in some of the things that, you know, Beach House is a very evocative artist as well in the way that they write their music, so there's definitely some similarities.
Where I would say there's a bit of difference, and I totally agree with both of those observations, by the way, but jeez, oh god, what would happen if I didn't?
I don't know.
But while I see those similarities, like Y Oak and Beach House, I consider to be very modern artists. Sharon Van Etten, to me, had a vibe and an appeal that really jumps back to some 70s artists.
More classy.
Yeah, like Patti Smith and Joni Mitchell, and, you know, you mentioned Fleetwood Mac. I think there's definitely a Stevie Nicks influence here. And it's not that she sounds overwhelmingly like any of those, but there are just moments where I can hear aspects of the sound coming out. And some of the darker, more rock-out tracks, I get some of that Patti Smith attitude and punk edge, even if this is nowhere close to punk music, you know? In the folksier, softer, more delicate side, I get that Joni Mitchell vibe. And then just kind of the soft rock middle ground, I get that Fleetwood Mac vibe. So there's a lot going on here. I wouldn't even say we'd limit it to, you know, those like 5 artists that we named. I think that Sharon Van Etten takes this general sound and really makes it her own and makes it fit her personal and emotional vision for what she's crafting here.
Yeah, and the instrumentation palette that you hear on this, I mean, you hear a lot of really nice piano melodies and piano foundation tracks, and there's also a lot of very interesting guitar melodies. And I mean, you really have a full band sound, even though it's just, you know, very singer-songwriter in the songwriting music, and you know, good bass lines, good drum beats and things like that. And I think that, you know, you gotta focus though on Sharon Van Etten's vocals.
Yeah.
The way that she's able to harmonize it's just absolutely beautiful how she composes, you know, these different vocal melodies. And I think that as you know, you see her get more intense on certain tracks, and really just she's pouring her soul out into these songs. And the thing is I think that, you know, when an artist emotes, when an artist is writing really powerful music and singing passionately about things, they're able to convey their message in a dynamic way, right? And that message therefore becomes more important.
Yeah.
What she's singing about here, keep in mind a lot of these tracks are relatively minor keyed, a little bit more, you know, I wouldn't say depressing, but morose is a good word to describe it. She's singing about, you know, personal experiences that are not happy times, right? About, you know, violence in relationships and heartbreak and in despair and things like that. Things that just tear at one's soul. So when she's singing about these subject matters and pretty evocative lyrics, a lot like The National, and especially in how she constructs some of these vocal melodies, it can be very powerful at times. It works really well with the songwriting and instrumental composition, and that's something that I give a lot of credit for.
I totally agree. I found that the more I listened to this album, I just thought it was a knockout.
Yes.
I was very impressed by it. The songs are just so well written, and that's really all it needs. That's all it comes down to, but I think she makes the production fit with it.
And she produced it herself.
Yeah, which is extremely impressive.
Yes,
because it sounds good.
Yes, every single
good.
Sound that you hear on Are We There is extremely precise. Everything is exactly, and when I get the sense when I'm listening to a record, you know, even I felt that way after like the second listen on this one, and I kept listening to it because it's so detail-oriented. Every single sound means something.
Yeah.
And adds to the overall, you know, listen to the record. And to me, this record's solid straight through.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that this is going to be one of the best of the year just on songwriting alone. I think it's the complete package.
Yeah. What are you going to give this?
I'm going to give this an 85.
I completely agree. I second it. 85 it is.
All right.
We've agreed a lot today.
We have.
Disagreed a lot today.
Actually, yeah, you're right.
It's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
A little bit of both. I like that. Good variety. What did you guys think of Are We There, the fourth record by Sharon Van Etten? This is getting a lot of love. Did you love it? If not, why? And if so, tell us about it. www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic. As always, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, let Tom and I know what records you'd like to see us review on this channel. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.